Congratulations! We found the same Russian oil shadow fleet. Subscribe to the YouTube channel of Ukrainska Pravda by clicking on the subscribe button below this video because we are getting started. We will completely ban seaborne imports of Russian oil. Western countries' price cap on sea supplies of Russian oil at $60 per barrel has come into force. We do not see any catastrophe here. This forces our companies to act more vigorously, to look for new logistics, to look for new partners, and they find. In general, the oil and gas market of Russia is in good condition and has harmful development prospects. Not just to bring the goods to the port and sell them, but I don't want to talk about all of them, about tools. On November 8 and 9 of this year, 2 oil tankers left the Black Sea port of Novorossiysk, Russian Federation, Lipari, and Sredina. The first is registered in Liberia, Africa. The second has Panamanian registration. Both tankers, according to registration documents, proceed to the port of Constanta, Romania. Both transport light-grade oil with a total volume of 160,000 tons. Both should be in Romania in a few days. On November 10, 2024, Russia's attack in the corridor of Ukraine lasted for more than 15 hours. Dozens of garbas, different regions, and it's hard to believe. But at the same time, dozens of tankers are carrying Russian oil and oil products.
Directly from the territory of the Russian Federation, in particular to the European Union, the countries of the European Union. We are now departing from Kyiv at 7 o'clock in the morning in the direction of the Romanian border in order to try to explore and show a lot of the so-called shadow fleet of the Russian Federation. Behind my back, the international point of Calendar. And by ferry, we go there, to Jerevan. Time for full-scale coping. The enemy has already hit here. And now we will go where the sports. What are the places and crossing points that Russia does not attack? Because tankers with Russian oil come to the European Union and still come there in the third year after a large-scale invasion. Literally thousands of minutes and we are in Romania. Constana, Romania, Dorat. Yes. Well, now we are going. We are going around the port. Constance in order to drive up to a tanker called Sredina. It has Panamanian registration. It sails under the Panamanian flag. And as far as I understand, he came from the port of Novorossiysk, Russian Federation. And as far as I understand, it is waiting near the coast, or there is a queue for unloading. But for some other circumstances, now let's try to see it. Here's this tanker. Here he comes. Russian again. Russian again. Romania de Dor. Now let's see. See? Well, after 200 meters, turn the Tema. Sika is here in Romania. I already see several Lukoil gas stations. Thanks. Judging by the marine traffic, we compared it with Google Maps and somewhere we are at the point here. And behind you can see the silhouettes of 3 tankers. One of them should be the middle or middle. However, among the tankers you see on the screen, there is no Sredina. The tanker from Russia is not visible from the shore. It stands about 10 kilometers further in the sea. And looking ahead, Sredina will hide like this in the sea for a week. Instead, this Sea Jewel tanker is unloaded in the port of Constanta. This tanker came to Romania from the Turkish port of Sihan, but after unloading, according to our sources in law enforcement agencies, it is heading to Russia in the port of Novorossiysk for loading. Recently, Politico reported that the European Union's anti-fraud department is investigating the supply of Russian oil products to the EU in circumvention of sanctions through Turkey. A year after the introduction of the embargo on the supply of Russian oil products on February 5, 2023, EU countries imported more than 5 million tons for more than 3 billion euros from 3 Turkish ports, despite the fact that these ports do not have processing facilities, including the port of Ceyhan. From where sea oil arrived in Romania. This year alone, this tanker was loaded 3 times in Russia, in February, March, and May. After unloading, he went to Russia again. And on the marine traffic online tracker, you can see the same tanker that we filmed a few hours ago in the port of Constanța. Turns to sea, and the destination is indicated Novorossiysk, Russian Confederation. And now it is off the Turkish coast. Join the Ukrainska Pravda Club if you want us to have the opportunity to shoot more such materials. Subscribe to the YouTube channel of Ukrainska Pravda by clicking on the fit in button below this video. Because as one politician said, if you and us, then everything is for everyone. And this is another Romanian neighboring port media. Another tanker Minerva Pacific also arrived here from Turkey. According to Ukrainska Pravda sources, law enforcement agencies have loaded the tanker twice in Russia this year alone. Last year, according to online trackers, the tanker visited the aggressor country 4 times. But let's return to the tankers Sredina and Lipari, which left Russia on November 8 and 9 for the Romanian port of Constanta. Sredina continues to stand far out at sea near Constanta, and Lipari unexpectedly went to neighboring Bulgaria instead of Constanta. Since the tanker with Panamanian registration Sredina, which left the Russian port of Novorossiysk and so on during the 3rd day and did not enter the port of Constanta, continues to be off the coast, we went to neighboring Bulgaria, where we also a tanker with Russian oil also arrived from Novorossiysk. And also a gas carrier. Literally today. Because what is Russia? It's gas and it's oil. And here is the gas station at Boyle, by the way. Don't switch. Burgas, Bulgaria, Tondel. Here is the tanker Lipari, registered in the West African country of Liberia, which arrived in Bulgaria. But not far from Lipari is the largest oil refining enterprise on the Balkan Peninsula, Rosinets, which belonged to the Russian oil giant Lukoil, and since September last year has become state property of Bulgaria. And this is the tanker Stamos, registered in Malta, which is moored from the base Rosinets. This tanker has visited Russia several times this year. Stamos visited Russia 2 more times in 2023. Where do you think Stamos is headed? Behind me is a Liparis tanker, which left the Russian port of Novorossiysk a few days ago, and the tanker Stamos, which had just left the oil depot Koil, moored at sea next to each other. It seems that oil transshipment may take place. This is what it is, the shadow fleet of the Russian Federation. However, there are tankers far from the coast, so we can't get them the first time. We find the nearest point and fly up to the tankers in the shelter the second time. In 2022, the European Commission allowed Bulgaria to import and process Russian oil until the end of 2024. Bulgaria received an exemption to ensure security of supply in the domestic market. However, it began to accept more Russian oil for its needs, apparently helping Russia sell oil to third countries. According to a report by the anti-corruption group Global Witness, the Korea think tank and the Institute of Public Policy in the first 10 months of 2023, the plant processed almost 5 million tons of Russian oil, sending more than 1 billion euros in direct tax revenues to the Kremlin. As the owner of the Kremlin, Vladimir Putin, stated earlier, about this amount was spent on financing the plant in a year. In the same 2023, the Bulgarian government adopted an initiative to stop imports of Russian oil. Restrictions on the use of Russian oil at this oil refinery in Koilu were supposed to be reduced to 80% by the end of 2023. And a complete rejection of Russian oil was supposed to be applied by October this year. However, what you see on your screens happens as early as November. This is how Russian oil is transshipped at sea. Transshipment at sea lasts a day. The next day, we return to tanker surveillance. 8 o'clock in the morning. Our two already well-known tankers, Stammes and Lipari, are already on the news. To one, respectively, transshipment took place. You can see that Lipari is no longer loaded, and Stammes, on the contrary, loaded. And now both tankers will go in different directions, as I understand it. Perhaps Lipari will return back to the port of Novorossiysk, and Stammes will go, excuse me, to unload in one of the ports of the European Union. As if he does not have oil from Russia at the port. And as you might have guessed in another day, the tanker Stammes returns to the Lukoy base. Behind my back, you can see the same Stammes tanker, which the day before yesterday pumped oil from the Lipari tanker, which came here from Portugal to the Russian Federation, the sea here, near Burgas. And now at this base, Luke, please pay attention to these barrels. Tomorrow, after unloading the tanker, we will check how many of them will be filled. On the morning of November 16th, the tanker Stammes was again behind me, which, judging by the line, had already been unloaded at night. This is how Russian oil, and with the help of the Shadow Fleet, ended up here. In Burgas, in Bulgaria, in the European Union, in the third year. Flon's mentorship of Russia's invasion of Ukraine. It can also be seen that 2 of the 6 empty barrels of the refinery are already full. Let's return to Romania, the city of Constance.
To the port, in order to meet the new tanker Altay, which came from the same port of Novorossiysk. Russian Federation, leader Albadak, Achahundasi, Gandiantare, and Eng.Dub Chapter. And also, if you're lucky. And transshipment will begin from the tanker Sredina, which also came from Novorossiyskaya. And since last Sunday, and today is already Saturday, that is, the 6th day, he has been at sea off the coast of Constanta. Obviously, it is either waiting for transshipment, or something has happened. There is not much time left. We hope that some activity will begin with one of these 2 tankers. And we will document another episode of the work of the Shadow Fleet of the Russian Federation in the European Union. The tanker Altay left the port of Novorossiysk, Russian Federation, on November 14th, 2024. The vessel is registered in the Marshall Islands. There are 19 crew members with Russian citizenship and 2 Georgians on board. Thus, together with Lipari, which came to the Bulgarian port of Burgas, and Sredina, which continues to be at sea near the Romanian port of Constantata. This is the 3rd tanker with Russian oil during the week in these 2 countries alone. Constanta, Romania. The tanker Altay, which left the Novorossiysk port of the Russian Federation, is heading to Fort Midia, Romania. Now it passes right behind my back, but it is not visible, because it is only a long distance from the drone, because we were able to breed it at least a little. The fact that this is Altay, in addition to the relevant data of the online tracker, can be verified by the characteristic white letters on the blue side. November 17th. a.m. This morning, Russia carried out one of the largest missile attacks on the territory of Ukraine. The target was Ukrainian energy, according to Ukrainian Pravda, and the military. The attack has begun at 6 a.m. At this very time, here we are now in the port of Midia, Romania, the European Union, if I remember correctly, NATO. There, about 10 kilometers from this port, there are 3 Romanian boxers. Now I would call them registration. Tireno. Oreshti.
And Astana is boxed by the oil tanker Altay, which arrived here, in Romania, to the reaches of Romania, from the Russian port of Novorossiyskaya. Our editorial office has at its disposal the correspondence of one of the sailors of the tanker Altay Bogdanov, Ivan Vladimirovich, born on February 3, 1993. Bogdanov is a qualified sailor of the deck crew of the tanker Altay. In this correspondence, Sailor Bogdanov notes where he works, where he is, and where he will go. Presumably on the 27th landing of the ship. And what ship do you work on as a sailor in Colombia, Vanek? My kitty is also the 3rd in Colombia. On the Altay? Yes. Well, maybe someday we'll get enough of it. What's his name? Bogdan Tortel. And when to Russia? Where are you now? Hopefully soon. The tanker Altay was at sea off Romania for about a week, constantly changing position and distance from the coast, and has now really returned to Russia for another loading. You won't believe it. It's 2 a.m. and the tanker Sredina, which came here a week ago to the shores of Constanta, Romania. Of the Novorossiysk Russian Federation finally began to move in tow. True, and probably now at night they're far at sea, there will be a docking with another tanker in order to pump oil and actually take it to the port. Here is the Sredina tanker that came to Constanta, Romania, European Union. A NATO Eng.Dub. Again, the Russian Federation, which, according to Russian dictator Putin, is at war with NATO. Here is the tanker Melahat, also of Panamanian registration, as well as Sredina, to which the boxers moor a tanker with Russian oil at sea. For transshipment. The next day, we managed to find a vessel in order to try to get the tanker Sredina at sea, which is reloaded onto the tanker Melahat.
Let their shores come out on the story, and still the tankers look like small specks. In the sea, pandons are overloaded. Now, on the screen, you see the tanker Melahat in orange, behind which you can see a fragment of the tanker Sredina in blue. Now imagine how many such transshipments at sea, far out at sea, take place here throughout the year. And how many such failures occur in other countries, in Bulgaria, in Turkey, in Tracia, in Italy, in Spain, and so on. And how many of these millions, tens and hundreds of millions of euros that Russia earns on its oil and oil products in order to continue its aggression. What we have clearly demonstrated in this material, Bulgaria, Romania, this is only a small part of what you need to understand. Now, right now, tankers are going to the port of Trieste, Italy, Rotterdam, Holland. There are tankers off the Spanish coast, and so on. These are dozens of ships. This process is not fast. They wait at sea for a long time. They are overloaded. It happens in most cases at night. Why do we, ordinary journalists from Ukraine, with a camera and a drone, see this and do not notice local authorities, law enforcement agencies, the European Union? After all, it is not so difficult to monitor, given their capabilities, the number of people and resources. Probably it is beneficial. There is some kind of informal agreement that this should happen. Few people probably realize that these are double standards. On the one hand, the civilized world and the European Union declare the fight against the dictatorship, in particular the Russian one, and on the other hand, it feeds and continues to feed on Russian oil, and that is why Russian aggression in Ukraine continues. Because, as is already evident, not only from this episode, sanctions against Russia are not enough.
And energy resources in Russia are simply limitless. Today, November 26, 2024, the tanker Melahet, which transshipment of Russian oil from the tanker Sredina took place a week ago, has already moored to a tanker with direct Russian registration, VF Tanker 3, in the territorial waters of Romania. This is the first case we have noticed when oil delivery to the European Union does not take place with the help of shadow fleet tankers registered in offshore jurisdiction, but with the help of a Russian ship. The tanker VF Tanker 3 came to Romania from the Russian port of Novorossiysk.